Hello everyone, this is the third video in the preparation for the dual enrollment music theory entrance exam. On this one we're going to be talking about how to determine minor key signatures. If you remember our last video, we talked about how to do major key signatures. Let's review that first because finding your minor key signatures is just one step more than finding your major key signatures. If you remember, there were three different rules in finding your major key signatures. One that we call the sharp rule, one that we call the flat rule, and one that we call memorize. Let's do the memorize one first. Basically, if you were asked for C major, there are 0 sharps or flats. If you're asked for F major, there is 1 flat, okay? Those things you just have to have memorized. Oh, hold on a second.
Good morning, friends. Special request here. If you have the front office cart, if you borrowed the front office cart, could you please return that to us? We have many things to cart around. Thank you.
C major is no sharps and flats. F major is 1 flat. You just have to have those two memorized. Let's talk about then the sharp rule. The sharp rule is where you first have to have the order of the sharps memorized. That order is 4, crows, got, drunk, at, Easter, barbecue. For the sharp rule, you take the letter that you're being asked for. So let's say I ask for D major. You subtract 1 in the alphabet. There we go. And that equals your last sharp in the key signature. So if I ask you for D, minus 1 equals C. So that means that C sharp is the last key signature. Therefore, in the key of D major, there are going to be 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. Trying to see if my back button works. No, it doesn't. Oh, goodness. Hit it too many times. Hold on a second, guys. There we go. So sorry about that. It can be a little bit of a frustration here with this technology, and the computer is running very slowly. So like everything I do, there's a 2 or 3 second delay before it actually happens. So again, for the sharp rule, you take the letter you're being asked, you subtract 1 in the alphabet, and that becomes your last sharp. So if I were to ask you then for, let me erase this stuff here. Sorry, I know this is a drag to watch here. If I were to ask you for A major, subtract 1 in the alphabet would be G. G sharp then is your last sharp. So your 3 sharps would be F, C, G, because G is your last sharp. A major would have 3 sharps. If I were to ask you for B major, go down 1 in the alphabet would be A. Therefore, A sharp is your last sharp in the key signature, and therefore you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sharps there, with A sharp being the last one, and therefore your sharps will be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. You use the sharp rule. Hold on a second. So frustrating that this keeps coming over there. For those of you who are watching, yes, I've already pushed the button to move it over, and it's just now starting to do that. It's a real drag. There we go. You use the sharp rule for any note that is natural, or if you also want to call it a white note. So that would be E major, D major, G major, A major, B major, or any major key signature that has a sharp in it, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, all right? Any white note or any sharp note, okay? Now the exception, of course, is C major and F major, because those are the 2 that are for the memorized rule, correct? Let's talk about how to find your key signatures with number 2, the flat rule. For the flat rule, you take the letter, you add 1. Oops, let me do it this way. You take the letter, you add 1 in the order of flats, and that equals your last flat. Now the order of flats is backwards from Four Crows Got Drunk at Easter Barbecue, so that becomes B, E, A, D, G, C, F. You basically just have to have that memorized. So if I were to ask you for E flat, there's your E flat, and then I were to ask you to add one in the order of flats, that's what I mean, go over one. So if I ask you for E flat major, there's going to be B flat, E flat, and A flat in the key of E flat major. If I were to ask you for D flat, go over one in the order of flats, and G sharp is your last sharp in the key of D flat major. So there would be 5 flats in the key of D flat major. You use the flat rule for any note that begins with a flat. D flat, E flat, G flat, A flat, B flat. So let's review again our 3 rules. You have the sharp rule. That is the letter -1 in the alphabet equals your last sharp. The order of sharps being Four Crows Got Drunk at Easter Barbecue. You use the sharp rule for any white note or any sharp note. You have the flat rule, which is the letter +1 in the order of flats. That becomes your last flat. You use that for any note that has flat in it. D flat, E flat, G flat, A flat, B flat. And you have the memorized rule, which is for C major, no sharps or flats, and F major, no sharps or flats. I'm about to sneeze, pardon me. Excuse me. That's how you find your major key signatures. For your minor key signatures, if I were to ask you for D major, for minor key signatures, and by the way, if you need more help with major key signatures, go back to video number 2, it's all there. For minor key signatures, you take the letter you're being asked for, you add 3 letters and 3 half steps. That's an important thing to be able to do both at the same time, okay? Let's take E minor, for example. If I ask you what is the key signature for E minor, first I'm going to have to add 3 letters. And I do that by using the bottom one as number 1. So E, F, G. Okay? If I'm looking for E minor, what I'm really looking for is the major key signature for G. But what I don't know is it G flat, G natural, or G sharp major that I'm looking for. That's where the 3 half steps come in. For the 3 half steps, I want to go over here and look at my keyboard. And I've got a gross looking keyboard here, but maybe I can fix it. There we go. So here is an E. To go up 3 half steps, I use E as 0, and I do 1, 2, 3. G natural is 3 half steps up from E minor. Again, I went up 3 letters, E, F, G, and then I went up 3 half steps, 0, 1, 2, 3. And G natural is what's called the relative major of E minor. G natural is the relative major of E minor. Why is that important? If I know the key signature for G major, I know the key signature for E minor because they are identical. Now I go back to my rules for finding major key signatures. G is a natural, it's a white note, so I use the sharp rule. Go down one in the alphabet to F. F would be the last sharp in the key signature. Therefore, G major has 1 sharp, E minor has 1 sharp. I went up 3 letters, E, F, G. I knew that the relative major of E minor is some kind of G, G flat, G natural, or G sharp. Then I have to go up 3 half steps using E as 0, E, F, F sharp, G, and that means that G natural is the relative major of E minor. I found the key signature for G major. That becomes the key signature for E minor. All right, let's do another one here. I'll erase all this stuff. Draw myself another keyboard here. And yes, I know this is ugly. If I were you, I would get good at doing something like this because you're going to want to be able to draw a keyboard on your exam margin somewhere. I'm going to ask you for the key signature for G minor. First, I need to go up 3 letters using G as 0, G, A, B. I know that B is going to be the key signature or the relative major of G. I don't know if it's B flat, B natural, or B sharp. That's where I have to go up 3 half steps. Here's my G. That's 0, 1, 2, 3. B flat is the key relative major of G minor. I use G, 0, 1, 2, 3. G flat is the relative major of G minor. Therefore, I know that B flat major is the relative minor. What is my key signature for B flat? I have to use the flat rule, and therefore I take B, I go over 1 in the order of flats to E flat. That becomes my last flat. So therefore, there are 2 flats in the key signature of B flat major. There are 2 flats in the key signature of G minor. Let's do a few practice exercises here, everyone. Can you, on a scrap piece of staff paper, in the treble clef, write for me the key signature for, let's do B minor. B minor. Pause the video now as you figure it out. Let's go over the answer. B minor, first I go up 3 letters, B, C, D. I know that some sort of D is going to be the relative major for B minor. I don't know if it's D flat, D natural, or D sharp. So I go up 3 half steps. B would be 0, C would be 1, C sharp 2, D natural 3. D natural is the relative major for B minor. So I have to find the major key signature for D major. That I would use the sharp rule, go down a letter in the alphabet to C sharp. That means F sharp and C sharp are the 2 sharps in the key signature of D major. There's my key signature for B minor. In the bass clef, can you figure out the key signature for C sharp minor, please, everyone? C sharp minor. Pause the video now. Here's your answer. For C sharp, first I want to go up 3 letters. C is 1, D would be 2, E would be 3. I know that E, some form of E, E flat, E natural, or E sharp, is going to be the relative major. Now I go up 3 half steps. C sharp would be 0, D natural 1, D sharp 2, E natural 3. E natural is the relative major for C sharp minor. Therefore, what is my key signature for E major? That's the sharp rule. Go down 1 to D. D sharp would be my last sharp. Therefore, the F, C, G, D would be my key signature for E major and the relative minor here, C sharp minor. Do please the key signature for D minor. Pause the video now. Here's your answer. D minor, 1 flat, B flat. Do please the key signature for C minor. Pause the video now. And here's your answer. 3 flats. Same thing as E flat major. The key signature for C minor is going to be 3 flats. I encourage you to just do a whole lot of different things. Ask yourself C minor, C sharp minor, D minor, D sharp minor. Just go straight up and down all of them and see what you can figure out for all of these different minors. And see if you can find their relative majors and their key signatures, and then check them online. If you can find your major key signatures and your minor key signatures, that sets you up for success for being able to do your scales, your triads, and your intervals. Basically, those 3 things, scales, triads, and intervals, you can't do without first being able to find your major and your minor key signatures. You can't find your minor key signatures without being able to do your major key signatures. So before you move on into scales and triads and intervals, make sure you're really good at key signatures, because honest to God, if you can do those key signatures, you're going to pass this entrance exam because that's the foundation for all the other tonal portion of the exam. I hope you have a great rest of your learning experience.